Today is a good day to fly and a good day to die. Peace through story. Well, when you tell us a story, we get to see into your eyes. This really matters. Ignite a story in you.
Welcome back to the Rhonda Swan Show. I've been loving the conversations I've been having with change makers, entrepreneurs, and people that are doing amazing things with their work. You know, when we started this next series, which is, I think we're on season 5 right now, my mission was to bring in those that are leaving an impact on the world, that are truly taking their gifts and helping others, helping change this energy and the frequency that's happening right now, especially in the world with all the things that are happening. And I decided to bring on an amazing woman today. You are going to absolutely love her. In fact, she is an award winner. Her name is Michale Gabriel. She's actually the CEO and founder of Story by Design. Now, Michale has used the power of story for more than 40 years to sit in private meetings with Ronald Reagan to speak about peace in Uganda, Costa Rica, and Iraq. She has done powerful things with her message and her storytelling. She's not just inspirational, but incredibly intriguing. I'm really excited to have you here with me today. Michale Gabriel, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm fine, and thank you so much for inviting me, Rhonda. I'm delighted to spend some time with you.
You know, I love your work. I love who you are. In fact, I met you in our Women Gone Wild series, our storytelling series. For the upcoming book, in fact, we'll talk about, because you're one of the authors in the next book, but in the first book, we decided to have a storytelling segment, and you came on, and I seriously, Michale, you dropped me into such a space when you just started to tell your story and teach our authors how to really tell a connected story. So what had you really stepping out into the world as a professional storyteller, and how has that impacted your life?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. I'll see if I can do it in a smaller time frame. Well, first of all, thank you very much. That means everything to me, because it's all about touching the heart, and that's what matters in our storytelling. We want our stories to land into people, inside of people, in a way that they can keep working them long past the telling. Yep. And I have been doing this, as you said, for over 40 years as a professional storyteller. I do have a background. I was a former director of children's library services, so I got to know storytelling and promoting literature through sharing of story, and also used story to help raise $2.8 million for the School of International Studies at the University of Washington.
Wow.
By telling our story more effectively. But one morning I had a meditation, Rhonda, in my backyard, and I saw this image of a globe. And the hands were holding it up like this. And the words over the top were peace through story. And I didn't exactly know what that meant. But what I knew was that I was supposed to go out into the world and create peace through story. Wow. I had no idea what that
You literally,
was
I just want you to know, I literally have goosebumps. I'm like, wow, that really sat well.
What? So, Rhonda, I had completed the campaign and I quit my job, and without a strategy, without a plan, and with a not very happy spouse at the time, I stepped out in telling stories. And I started out by storytelling in schools, and ended up working, presenting at keynotes at conferences of librarians and teachers and so on, and bringing literature to life through storytelling. That was how I started. And I learned some really valuable things during that time, because I was ultimately in front of hundreds of thousands of children, not just in the United States, but worldwide. But I never memorized a story and then told it. Storytelling is different than story writing, so it has to be recast. But when I would tell stories in schools and I would watch the children's faces, I would notice when they seemed to lean in and really connect with the story. And yes, and then afterward, if I was, putting books in my car as I was leaving at the end of the day after 5 performances, And I would hear a child say, Mom, the storyteller came today and she told me a story about, and then they're retelling the story to the parent.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, that's good. Because what that means is I've told the story in such a way as to activate the child's imagination and to allow that story to stick, to stick. And then I would go back to a school maybe 2-3 years later, and some kid would come up to me and they would say, oh, Michale, Gabriel, you know that story you told in the first grade about that little boy that didn't follow directions very well? His name was Epaminondas. And you remember how the butter came down on his face and his mama loved him anyway?
Oh.
And I would think to myself, Rhonda, you know what? If I'm telling a story that is sticking to a child that long, in that way, then I need to look at every story that I tell and make sure that it's worthy of staying in a child's heart and mind for that long. So I looked at stories, and they could be funny, they could be this, they could be that, they were all of the above. But are those stories messages around generosity of spirit and compassion and love and empathy and forgiveness and celebrating one another's diversity? And so I selected stories that I felt had staying power and that I felt were worthy of staying with a child. And then the same thing would happen with adults. So, Michale, you know that workshop you did 8 years ago? Well, you remember that story you told about? And I'm thinking, okay, this really matters. And so for me, Rhonda, it's always been about helping my clients, because now I work with people one-on-one and I do leadership training and so on. When we're working with a person's story, I ask myself, what pieces of this individual story do we need to put together in such a form and tell it in such a way as to allow it to let the listener in, to allow it to let the listener engage and connect with the teller so that they're one in that incredible space of story, which is quite frankly where the magic happens, where the trust occurs, and where the resonance happens. And being able to do that allows us then as human beings to relate and to connect with each other. And every story has both a personal side to it, meaning your unique experience, but it also has a universal application or a universal connection. And so I look for both, so that when I'm telling that story, if I tell it well, what I would like for it to do is to not only bring us closer together, but also to ignite a story in you.
Michale, I love this so much. As you were speaking, right, it brings me into so many moments. You know, first off, certainly as kids, it's what we know, like stories are everything, because children remember them, right? They learn from them. You know, there's so many, you know, fables and lessons within our stories that we teach our children. But you also brought me into like a space, you know, I'm a speaker, right? And I remember speaking on stage and watching, or actually I remember watching from the audience before I was speaking. And Bob Proctor's, you know, rest in peace, is, you know, mentor of mine, and it was an amazing storyteller. You know, you would just get engulfed in the way that he was telling his stories, and you just wanted to listen. And I remember before I was getting ready to go on speaking on stage after Bob, I was like, gosh, I was melted into his demeanor and just the way that he let the story out. And I said to Bob before I went on, I was like kind of nervous, and I was like, Bob Proctor, hi, I'm Rhonda Swan. I'm getting ready to go speak after you. Can you tell me, how did you bring them in? How did you tap in? And how do you bring the audience in? And he looked at me and is like, you know, big, tall Bob Proctor style. And he looked at me and said, look them in the eyes and touch their heart. And it changed me as a speaker. And I think, especially for like, you know, leadership, and you were talking about adults, you've worked a lot in, you know, in corporations and leadership. How is that really, how would you say this type of storytelling can help and translate also into leadership and into business as well?
Completely. But before I do that, I do want to make one comment about Bob's comment to you, because that reminded me of a story, Rhonda. So there was I was teaching teachers how to tell stories, and this third grade teacher said one day to his students, because it was like a 5-week class, and he said to them, "Would you like me to read you a story or tell you a story today?" And the children said, "Oh, we want you to tell us a story. Tell us a story." And he said, "Why would you rather I tell you a story rather than read you a story?" And one of the children said, "Well, when you tell us a story, we get to see into your eyes."
Oh, yes.
See, that's it.
That's
Okay, that's it. Couldn't resist. Got to get that in there. Okay.
I love it.
So yes.
He probably said that to me too, and I just didn't remember because I was so nervous.
Right. Now you have 2 stories, Rhonda. Now you have 2 stories. But it's so true. And so often in the corporate world we're looking at our slides on the screen. Every time we turn and do that, we're disconnecting. And what people are pining for, I think now more than ever, they want us.
Yeah.
They want connection. They want to see into our eyes. They want to feel us. They want to engage with us. And honestly, it isn't, I say to people, this is not about performance. Even as a speaker, it's not about performance. It is about co-creation. Can you tell your story in a way that allows the listener in with you? And sometimes if we're too much performing, especially in a corporate environment, that's actually pushes people away rather than bringing them in. And so I say, look, all they're looking for is authenticity. People used to say to me when I started entering the corporate world about 25 years ago, they said, "Oh, you're the storyteller. You're going to help us put a spin on a story?" And because they had kind of a bad rap, So I said, well, actually, no, because I wouldn't be serving you if I did.
Yeah.
Because the people that you lead are very smart, and they will figure it out that you're putting a spin on a story. My goal here is to help you find an authentic connection to your messaging so that you can speak it from a place of integrity. And if we cannot find a connection between you and your messaging, your organization is better served to have someone else carry that message. And you are better served not speaking it, because it is going to erode your credibility with the people you're leading.
It's so big.
So that's why I'm here, and that's what we're here to do the work.
Yeah, and I love your work. I know that my audience, especially, they're entrepreneurs and they do run big companies, and it's such a vital piece. I remember hearing before, it's not really what you say, it's actually how you make people feel, right?
That's right.
And I think it's not as hard as others would think. Like I know, so many get so stuck in like the structured and the marketing type of way to talk, right? Because they're like, this is,
yes, of course.
But man, just to weave in your natural ability of just telling stories is so connected, and it helps increase not only your value connection to your employees, but then allows your customers to tap in. I've been in branding for 15, 20 years, and it's always about that. It always comes back to like, what is the story and the values that you want to tell and your company wants to tell. So what would you say then, Michale, like for, I know you have different courses that you run. What kind of things that you do with, let's say, speakers, authors, coaches, consultants that want to bring this message? Like what type of work do you do with them?
That's a great question, Rhonda. And actually, I find for many of my clients in the last years is really working one-on-one coaching, because everybody has a different need. I do workshops, I do online courses, but oftentimes someone that is getting ready to go do an online masterclass, for example, or they're out speaking, or they're launching a business, they're talking to investors, then what they need is that one-on-one coaching to be able to really unearth the deeper story. And it's interesting, Rhonda, because sometimes the story we think we want to tell ends up not being the story. It's underneath that. And it takes questions and listening. And part of, I think, my skill set is being able to listen deeply and hear the story that's not being told yet.
Yeah.
And to mirror that back to a person, what I'm hearing, and they go, what? Really? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And you go, yeah, it's there. But you have to listen. And often we're we're in our own lives, so we don't see who we are the way another person sees us. But often we also don't hear ourselves being reflected back.
Yeah.
And my goal always is to reflect back to that those threads that we can go deeper, deeper, deeper. I've had people who I've heard, for example, on a Zoom call or something, a master class, that somebody's doing. And I know there's a story there, but I know we're not getting to the heart of it. And then I've worked with them, and then to watch them after and people leaning in and writing comments in the chat. When I see that, what it's telling me is that the story, because we chose to go deeper, is resonating. The other thing I've noticed, Rhonda, is sometimes we have too big of a story and we try to tell too much.
Too many details.
And less is more. Yeah. It's better to reenact, relive, because that's what you're doing. You're telling a story, reliving a moment so the listener has access in their imagination. They can be there with you. So it's better to choose moments, key moments, and work with those. So like in a writing process, you write a lot, and then what goes on the floor and what ends up being elevated, so that when you tell that story, the point that you're wanting to make is embedded in the story, so that by the time you get to the end of it, the listener already has the point. They've come up with it to themselves. They have made it the point. You didn't tell them what the story was about. They figured it out. More importantly than that, they have created their own meaning from the story you've told, which means the chances of it lasting longer, sticking longer, impacting them longer is greatly increased. So that's how I work with people. We work to do that because, Rhonda, we have stories the world needs desperately. This is exactly the work that you are engaged in. And we need to hear these stories. And because they shift us, they shape shift us, they change us, they shift our consciousness, and they allow us to look at the world differently. All right. Someone just wrote me and said, Michelle, if only the KGB could hear you storytell. And I said, well, they actually heard me in the 80s. I was in the former Soviet Union 9 times doing peace work. So I laughed. And then someone said, yes, but you are a fairy godmother. That's the name they gave me when I did a film series that reached 50 million people. And they said, as a fairy, of course, they could never control you. So that would never work anyway. I said, well, you were right about that. But the point is, our stories have that capacity. And I love working with people that have a story, but it's rough around the edges. It's not fully formed. We can go deeper, unearth more. And so that when they speak with power, and they speak wisdom, they speak medicine.
Oh, I love that. They speak medicine. I think that's, because even if we're looking at what's going on in the world right now, right? These shifts, we can't continue to do the same thing. And I think that those, the wisdom keepers and our leaders of this world, the moment they really learn just to tap and be real and be authentic and connect to people's heartstrings, our planet will shift. Right? And stories are the underlying, factor of shifting that consciousness.
Rhonda, I'm working with displaced students right now at Ukraine National, Odessa National University, where I actually had taught storytelling back in 1988. I made 9 trips to Odessa. I've traveled across the country with my Young Storytellers for Peace program and Teachers for Peace program. But these students now, some are across Ukraine, and then also in the bordering countries, the Czech Republic, the Hungary, Poland, France, and they're devastated. I mean, they're going through so much. Those that are in Ukraine, in Odessa, for example, are hearing the bombs and the sirens go off. The other day, one girl said, they were going for a walk in the park for the first time in weeks, and the sirens went off, and she and her friends spent 3 hours in a bomb shelter. That was their outing. Wow. And so I'm working with these young people, telling them stories, taking them into the land of faraway places, because we need to take a break. In times like these, we need a break. We need a break. It was like, we need to leave this for a moment and go somewhere else that is comforting and nurturing, which is what story does. But then also, I'm working with these young people and creating their own personal stories about the new Ukraine and their role in it. And as they tell me about their interests and their values, and then I'm saying, well, have you thought about it? Could you possibly be? Or what about this? And I'm mirroring back to them their own potential.
Yeah.
And it is so thrilling, Rhonda, to see what's happening to them.
Yeah, it's like you're reshaping this. You're reshaping the perspective that they might even have on this current situation, right? I mean, that's
one student at a time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if, the last 2 years, people can look at it and say, "Oh, it was the worst time in the world. Oh my gosh, it was horrible." Or, gosh, like for us, when my family speaks, we're like, we were more connected. We spent more time together. We learned more about ourselves. I think it's really a beautiful thing in the work that you're doing, Michale. Before we go, though, I'm real excited because you're also an author in the next book. You're one of the authors of the Wealth Edition that's coming out in June. And if you're watching this now, it comes out June 8th, so you'll be able to get access. If it's past June 8th, you can always go get the book in Amazon. But Michale, would you share a little bit about your chapter? Are you talking about the storytelling? Are they going to be able to get some of that structure inside of the book?
Well, I think my message in the book really, Rhonda, is about follow your heart and trust the process. Yeah, that's really my message. I mean, who would have thought that saying yes to a globe and a hands holding it and peace through story would take me, to across the U.S. and around the world storytelling, take me to the former Soviet Union, take me to Iraq, take me to founding the storytelling residency program at Children's Hospital, and then the last 26 years working with adults communicating their own stories so they could be more effective leaders. My message to people is when you get a nudge and a push and an insight and a vision, trust it, follow it. Yes, there'll be tough times. Yes, there'll be challenges. Yes, there'll be setbacks. But let me tell you something. And I can say this, Rhonda, now at age almost 77. I think you and I have a birthday just about the same day, if I'm not recall.
June 3rd is mine.
What day?
June 3rd.
What day?
June 3.
Honey, I'm June 4.
Yes,
I mean, we are like sisters, girl. We are like
that's
Gemini.
Great. Yay, of course. Geminis.
Okay. So let me tell you, at age 77, when I think back on my life and the things that matter, it's because I said yes. It's because I said yes. So my message in the book is your wealth is in your being able to know that because you lived, someone else benefited, someone else, their life improved because of something you did. Their lives are enhanced because of something that you did by virtue of just being you. Do it, trust it, be it, because looking back on my life, there's a saying I love and I use it a lot, and it's from the indigenous cultures, and it's, today is a good day to fly and a good day to die. And I want to live every single day of my life that it's a good day to fly, but it's also a good day to die. Because I have completed my mission on planet Earth.
I love that, Michale. Thank you. I love your work. Where can people that are watching this, find more about your one-on-ones, the workshops that you do?
Absolutely. Well, of course, I'm on all the social media handles, but if you go onto my website, michalegabriel.com, and then you'll see all links to all the other social media. You'll also see some videos and podcasts and so on that I've done, so you get a feeling. And it also outlines all the different services. And honestly, just get on a call with me. Let's talk about what's going on in your life and how I can be of service, because my commitment is for you to be able to fully express the truth and medicine that's in you with the voice that you have, and to enable you to have the impact you want to have in the world.
Well, I thank you so much. We all deserve that. And I know, just being in the entrepreneur space, right? Like learning how to do this work and communicate better will not only help you be just a better connector, but leave a bigger impact with your message. So Michale, thank you so much. I cannot wait to have this book launching and for all of us to come together with Women Gone Wild, really sharing our true, authentic stories. Like, what is our bigger message in the world, and how are women coming together to show that we get to fail. We get to fail fast, and we get to fail forward. And the more that we do that together, the greater the world will be. So thank you, my dear, for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. It's been a gift. Thank you so much for letting me spend some time with you in Bali, which is I've been on my bucket list, as you well know. Of course, I'm in Costa Rica. That's not too shabby either.
Yeah, I can't wait to come and visit
but
you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, my dear.
Okay.
Well, everyone, imagine, think about your story. Think about the way you're connecting. Are you tapping into that truest essence of yourself when you're sharing your message, when you're sharing about the impact you want to leave on the world? We are all here to make an impact and a difference in someone's life. But imagine doing it with such grace and authenticity. Telling your story or sharing your message in a way that moves someone. Like you're telling a story to a 6-year-old that's sitting down on their pillows just watching and listening to every word you say. This is the new form of not only marketing, but connection and creation and leaving an impact. So I hope today's show inspired you to start telling your story in a different way. Reach out to my guest, Michale, and utilize her services on how you can not only be a better communicator, better entrepreneur, but deliver your message in such a more authentic and beautiful way. It's so great to have everyone here. Please make sure that you are leaving comments and messages down below on the impact that you got from today, the lessons and the value you received from today. And don't forget, the Women Gone Wild book series is out. June 8th is when we're officially launching the Wealth series, and that is only the W in Wild. Next book is launching next year is Intuition, then Leadership and Diversity, to encompass a fully engulfed and graced wild woman that wants to leave an impact on the world. Well, everyone, thanks again for being here. We'll see you on the next show. Don't forget to be unstoppable and stay wild.